the whole theory of political control by imposition of the rule of law from above, which is, alas, the Christian theory of the universe. This is the way God is operating. God is personally aware with his full, total consciousness of every atom of existence. Think of having to be occupied with the vagaries of every human mind. Poor God, the victim of his own power game. And Lao Tzu is saying that in the art of ruling, you do not use force. You never press the issue. He likens the functioning of the Tao to water. And he says, now water is always taking the line of least resistance. It doesn't strive. It always seeks the low level, which men abhor because they always want to be on top. But what can you do with water? You can't cut it. You can't injure it. You can't compress it. So he's saying, in other words, if you want to govern the nation, you must behave like water. He has a conception of the Tao which is, as it were, the exact opposite of all conceptions of God. He says this: the great Tao flows everywhere, both to the left and to the right. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. And when merits are accomplished, it lays no claim to them. It says, the swishing wind does not last out the morning. The pelting rain does not go on all day. If heaven and earth cannot keep these things up, how much less can man? So he has an idea of the emperor as an anonymous sort of person who would be, in other words, to a political community in the same way as today the sanitary engineer is. Never would you imagine the sanitary engineer going through town in a great car with a police escort and flags in all directions. Nobody even knows who the sanitary engineer is, and yet he's a very important official. Without him, there would be health problems and all sorts of difficulties. But because he's in charge of the sewers, everybody would say, well, that's not very glamorous. And Lao Tzu is saying that the chief official of the state should have the same attitude as the man in charge of the sewers. That the less he parades himself, the more effective he can be. The less that's known about him, the better. So he says the energies of the emperor should be directed to keeping the minds of the people unpreoccupied and their bellies well filled. In other words, let's not have news about politics. Let the newspapers be full of interesting things, not political things. But our newspapers, which are all about politics, are full of catastrophes. You open the newspaper and what do you read? What is news? Bad news is news. But the saying, you know, no news is good news. All news is bad news. They don't say the great things that are going on. Very rarely. So Lao Tzu advocates no news at all. No discussion of politics. He says, my ideal state would be a small one in which you could hear the chickens in the neighboring state. And there would be no apparent government. It's a kind of anarchy. But of course, anarchy depends upon everybody being responsible. Therefore, if you are going to have a control of an enormous amount of information, it has to be delegated, and you have to trust them all to work together. A highly organized system where a lot of detail is going on has to be a system of mutual trust. There is no way of bossing it. If you want to have it at all, you have to have it by letting go and saying to all the units in it, come on, let's play together. But the moment you come on uptight about them and say, now, I want an accounting from each one of you, each one of them feels a little mean about it, and will conceal information, and you, if you're going to keep charge of the whole thing in that style of behavior, are going to have your hands full. Too full. You won't be able to watch it all. So therefore, every organic complexity works by the delegation of authority. Every organic unity is a system of love, that is to say, of mutual trust. It says, thank God I've got you around. I often think about this. Somebody does something that's marvelous, and I think, what a relief that you could do that and I didn't have to. All that effort that you put into doing this is so beautiful, and it just relieved me of the necessity. See? And that's the way that the life principle really works. In complete opposition to any idea of lordship, of all the credit belongs to me. You as an ego, supposing you've achieved something great, and you say, no, it wasn't my ego that did it. It was all these myriad little molecules and cells, each one of whom contributed to this extraordinary thing that I did. See, you can go in that way towards infinite diversity and say of everything that you did, no, it wasn't me, it was my people. It was all these little fellows who, each one of them did it. To the degree that you go towards the infinitude of the little ones, to that extent you have a true sense of unity. Whereas if you don't give any credit to the little ones and you say, well, I just push them around and so on and so forth, you don't realize how things are put together. This is the true inner meaning of the principle of non-duality, that the truest unity is the same thing as the most detailed multiplicity. You don't know what you mean by unity unless you understand multiplicity. The one throws out the other idea. They balance each other like the back and the front. So in exactly the same way, the more you go for highly articulate multiplicity, the more you get unity. The whole idea of the giving in to the other, trusting it to do it. So this is the real secret underlying the democratic principle, the notion of what a republic is, as distinct from a monolithic monarchy, where the people cease to trust themselves and say to an authority, please, you take care of us instead. It works exactly the opposite direction. And that direction is the opposite direction of the way in which all living organisms flow and manifest themselves.
There is a strange illusion at the heart of modern life, a quiet assumption that something is wrong with you. It hides in the self-help books, in the words of well-meaning friends, even in the silence of your own thoughts. You are told that you must fix yourself, improve yourself, heal yourself, as if being alive were some sort of wound. But what if that isn't true? What if the very idea that you are broken is the reason you feel incomplete? The notion of healing suggests that there exists an ideal version of you somewhere ahead in time, a self without pain, without confusion, without flaws. You imagine that if you can just reach that person, then you'll finally be free. And so you set off on a long journey of correction, trying to repair what you believe life has damaged. But in chasing this image of perfection, you overlook the simple truth that there has never been anything fundamentally wrong with you to begin with. Think of a wave rising and falling in the ocean. At no point in its motion is it less ocean than before. Whether it crashes wildly on the rocks or stretches out gently across the shore, it remains exactly what it always was, the sea in temporary form. You are no different. Your confusion, your sadness, your longing, all of it is the motion of life expressing itself through you. There is nothing to fix because there was never a mistake. The pain you feel is not proof of brokenness, but proof of being alive. Healing, as the world describes it, often becomes a new kind of suffering. You start believing that every difficult emotion, every memory, every shadow must be scrubbed away before you can finally rest. You begin to measure your worth by how healed you appear to be. But the truth is, this endless self-repair keeps you trapped in the same cycle you are trying to escape. You keep searching for peace by rejecting the parts of yourself that need peace most. The mind is clever at disguising this pursuit. It calls it growth, progress, evolution, anything to avoid stillness. Yet the very nature of life is already movement. You don't need to make yourself flow. You only need to stop damming the river. What you call healing is often resistance in disguise, a subtle refusal to feel what is already asking to be felt. But feeling is the medicine. Awareness is the cure. Look closely at your moments of greatest pain. Beneath the surface, you'll see that pain only becomes unbearable when you begin to fight it. The wound itself is not the enemy. The resistance to it is. The moment you soften into what is even for a second, the weight begins to shift. The pain doesn't always vanish, but your relationship to it transforms. It ceases to define you. You begin to sense that what you are cannot be hurt by what you experience. You, the awareness, are untouched. Imagine a mirror reflecting everything before it: light, shadow, beauty, decay, yet remaining unchanged. The mirror does not heal the images it reflects. It doesn't cling to them or reject them. It simply holds them until they fade, and in doing so, it reveals its own unbroken nature. This is what you are, not the reflections, not the stories, not the scars. You are the space in which they come and go. We've been taught that healing is about becoming someone better, but real healing, if we can even call it that, is not about improvement. It's about seeing that nothing needed improvement in the first place. It's the realization that the self you thought was damaged was only ever a thought. The deeper self, the one that watches, the one that breathes you, has never been harmed. But the ego doesn't like this truth. It thrives on problems to solve. Without something to fix, it begins to lose its purpose. So it invents endless tasks: heal this, transcend that, awaken to something new. The more you chase completion, the more distant it feels, because the chaser and the chased are the same illusion. The very effort to become whole keeps you from recognizing that you already are. The paradox of awakening is that it doesn't happen through effort, but through surrender. It happens the moment you stop trying to become what you already are. This is why so many spiritual seekers spend years meditating, journaling, or retreating, only to discover that the peace they were looking for was always present, hidden beneath the noise of their own striving. You may remember moments in your life when this truth flashed through. Perhaps it was after heartbreak, or loss, or exhaustion, when all your attempts to control had failed, and for a brief instant, you simply gave up. In that surrender, there was peace, not because the pain was gone, but because the struggle was. The moment you stopped demanding that life be different, life revealed its own quiet perfection. This doesn't mean you will never suffer again. It means you stop turning suffering into identity. You stop calling yourself the wound. You allow feelings to rise and fall without believing they define who you are. The tears, the laughter, the confusion, all are waves passing through the same vastness. The ocean doesn't apologize for its storms. It knows they are part of its rhythm. If you can begin to see yourself in this way, you realize that the idea of healing was never about fixing yourself. It was life's way of guiding you back into wholeness, not through repair, but through remembrance. You begin to understand that even your mistakes were not detours but doorways. Every broken thing was simply an opening to what was whole all along. You don't need to heal to be whole because you have never been separate from the whole. The mind invented separation and then built an industry of healing to bridge the gap. But the gap was imaginary. The moment you see that, the chase ends. You realize that what you were trying to fix was a dream. When you rest in this awareness, healing happens naturally, but not in the way you imagined. You don't become perfect, you become real. You don't become pure, you become whole, which means nothing is left out. Your pain belongs, your joy belongs, even your confusion belongs. Wholeness is not the absence of fragmentation. It is the recognition that even fragmentation is part of the whole. The seed does not heal its shell by breaking it. The shell must crack for the life within to emerge. So too, your struggles are not flaws to fix, but cracks through which your light escapes. Every time you allow yourself to feel what you've been avoiding, every time you stop fighting the messiness of being human, you grow closer to the truth that you were never broken, only unfolding. The end of seeking is not found in perfection, but in presence. The peace you long for is not waiting at the end of your healing journey. It is here, quietly breathing beneath all your attempts to find it. The more you relax into that truth, the more life begins to feel like coming home. And perhaps, for the first time, you realize that you were never meant to heal from life, but to live it fully, to feel it all, to let it move through you, and to see that every moment, no matter how painful, is part of something perfectly whole. When you stop trying to heal, something unexpected happens. Life begins to breathe through you again. The air feels lighter, sounds become sharper, and even your pain takes on a kind of beauty. You realize that what you once called brokenness was not an obstacle to living, but part of what made living possible. The cracks in your heart were never flaws, they were openings through which tenderness could enter. Without them, you would never have known compassion, or depth, or love. The irony is that the more you try to escape pain, the more it lingers. But when you stop running, when you sit quietly and allow yourself to feel exactly what is here, the pain begins to unfold into something else. It turns from a weight into warmth, from tension into tenderness. You realize it was never trying to hurt you. It was trying to speak to you. Every ache in your chest, every tear you've ever shed was life's way of saying, look here, pay attention. There's something sacred beneath this. Wholeness is not an achievement. It is the natural state of awareness before you divide it into categories, before you call one feeling good and another bad, one experience spiritual and another mundane. The moment you stop dividing, you see that all of it belongs. The sadness, the joy, the confusion, the clarity, they are all faces of the same mystery. To call one divine and the other human is to forget that both are made of the same light. For years, you may have thought of healing as a process of becoming, of getting somewhere, becoming wiser, more peaceful, more enlightened. But the truth is that becoming never ends. You can always imagine a better version of yourself. You can always picture a higher state, a deeper calm, a more spiritual you. And so you remain on the treadmill of transformation, chasing an image that keeps shifting just beyond your reach. Freedom begins when you see that you don't need to become anything at all. You can rest in what already is. This resting is not laziness. It is the greatest courage there is, the courage to stop striving in a world that worships progress. It is an act of rebellion against the noise that tells you that you are not enough. When you stop trying to be enough, you find that enoughness has been your nature all along. It was the striving itself that made you forget. The idea of healing implies a return to some original wholeness, but that wholeness never left. What left was your awareness of it. Like clouds drifting across the sky, your thoughts, traumas, and desires temporarily obscured the light. But the light was always there, quietly shining behind everything. You don't need to chase it. You only need to stop fighting the clouds. There is a quiet intelligence in life that is constantly moving toward balance. You see it in nature. A tree grows toward the light. A river carves its way toward the sea. Nothing forces it to. It simply happens. Your body knows how to heal a wound without your instruction. Your breath continues even as you sleep. The same intelligence that keeps the stars burning also keeps your heart beating. To trust this is to stop managing existence as if it depended on you. It never did. When you rest in this trust, the need to heal begins to dissolve. Because the one who thought it needed healing, the small self, the imagined center, was only ever a passing thought. It was never real. You realize that awareness itself was never wounded, never stained, never in danger. It has watched every rise and fall of emotion with perfect stillness, and that awareness is what you are. What does it mean, then, to live without trying to heal? It means to live as life lives, fluidly, honestly, without resistance. It means to let joy and sorrow move through you without clinging to either. It means to allow every experience to touch you fully and pass through, knowing that you lose nothing by letting go. You don't have to protect yourself from life. You only need to participate in it. Perhaps you've noticed that your most profound moments of healing have come not through effort, but through surrender. It wasn't the therapy, the book, or the retreat that freed you, but the quiet moment afterward, when you finally let yourself rest. When you stopped trying to make sense of everything and simply allowed yourself to be, that peace was not something you created. It was what remained when the struggle stopped. Real healing, if we must use the word, is not about repairing the past. It is about releasing the need for a different one. It is about forgiving the story that says things should have happened another way. When you truly accept what has been, not as resignation, but as recognition, you discover that nothing needs forgiveness, because nothing was ever wrong. The pain that shaped you also awakened you. The loss that hurt you also opened you. Life has been your greatest teacher all along. To live this way is to live without a center. It is to be free from the endless self-concern that says, how am I doing? Am I better yet? Am I enough yet? When you let that question fall away, what's left is pure being, no comparison, no measure, no judgment. Just this moment, alive and unrepeatable. Just the sound of breath moving in and out, the light shifting on the wall, the quiet pulse of existence itself. You realize that healing was never a destination. It was the path you were already walking without knowing it. The human tendency is to look for closure, to imagine an endpoint, a day when all the pieces finally fit. But life is not a puzzle to complete. It is an ocean, and you are its movement. Waves do not heal from crashing. They were never broken by it. The rise and fall is the motion of the sea expressing itself. The moment you understand this, you stop asking the wave to be still. You stop asking yourself to be fixed. Even suffering, when seen clearly, becomes sacred. It deepens your capacity for love. It humbles your pride. It connects you with others who have suffered too. Pain opens the door to empathy. Through it, you realize that all beings share the same longing to be seen, to be accepted, to be allowed to exist as they are. And in recognizing that, the distance between you and the world begins to dissolve. You see that you are not healing alone. You are remembering together. Life is not waiting for you to perfect yourself before it begins. It has been happening all along, through every mistake and every triumph, through every heartbreak and every joy. To live as wholeness is to live without the future tense, to stop postponing peace until some later moment. Life is not waiting for you to perfect yourself before it begins. It has been happening all along, through every mistake and every triumph, through every heartbreak and every joy. To live as wholeness is to live without the future tense, to stop postponing peace until some later moment. The wholeness you seek does not exist somewhere ahead. It is this very breath, this heartbeat, this awareness hearing these words now. When you look back someday, you will see that every step, even the ones that felt lost, led you here. The wrong turns, the breakdowns, the moments you thought you had failed, they were not detours but directions. Each one softened you, shaped you, prepared you for the moment you could finally stop. And in that stopping, you will find that you have arrived at what was never absent. The invitation of life is not to become pure, but to become whole. And wholeness includes everything: the joy, the grief, the confusion, the laughter, even the longing to be whole. When you can hold all of that without resistance, when you can see yourself as both the wound and the healer, both the ocean and the wave, something beautiful happens. The struggle ends not because you have conquered it, but because you see that it was never separate from peace. To live without needing to heal is to live as the open sky, vast enough for every storm, untouched by every cloud. You stop fearing the weather of your own mind. You stop waiting for the rain to pass before you dance. You realize that the rain was part of the dance all along. So perhaps the most radical thing you can do is nothing to sit quietly in your own being and allow life to be exactly as it is. In that stillness, you may notice that you no longer crave healing because you no longer believe in your own brokenness. The journey has come full circle. What you were searching for was never missing. It was the one who was searching. You do not need to heal to be whole. You only need to remember that you already are.
There is a curious paradox, which is, to love is unconditional, but to be loved is conditional. By the time one has crossed the 30s or 40s, they have seen enough of life to know that the fairy tales of youth were, at best, charming illusion. One begins to understand that love does not appear as a reward for virtue, nor is it guaranteed to remain, simply because you have been loyal, patient, or deserving. Some have poured themselves, drop by drop, into the vessel of another's life, only to watch it leak away through fingers that once clung to them. Others still dwell beneath the same roof with their chosen companion, yet feel as though they have become a stranger at their own table. And there are those who have wandered from heart to heart, thinking that the next embrace, the next yes, would finally fill the hollow within, only to find the emptiness echo back at them. You begin to wonder why something as natural as love has become such a labyrinth of conditions, unspoken bargains, and quiet disappointments. You sense that somewhere, beneath all the poetry and promises, there is a truth you have been avoiding. For love, as it is sold to us, is not love at all, but something dressed in its garment. And here, perhaps, lies the seed of our quiet discontent. We have confused the appearance of love with love itself, the structure that holds it, with the living thing it was meant to carry. From our earliest breath, the world whispered its bargain into our ears. Love is something to be earned. Behave as you are told, and you will be cherished. Fulfill the needs of another, and you will be kept. Offer beauty, strength, usefulness, devotion, and the reward will be love. But this is not love. It is a transaction masquerading as tenderness. It is the polite exchange of commodities between two people who have been taught to call their bargain romance. You see, a bargain can hold people together, but it cannot nourish them. Like two merchants bound by contract, they remain so long as the terms are met. And when they are not, they part. No matter how many years have passed, no matter how deeply your lives have entwined, the invisible ledger will one day be brought to the table and the sums will be counted. Many men and women wake in the middle years of life to the cold recognition that what they once believed was love was only an arrangement. It might have been cloaked in vows before God, adorned with flowers, or sealed with the trembling promises of youth, but the heart of it was a simple pact. I will give you what you desire if you will give me what I desire. And when the giving stops, whether through weariness, age, illness, or simple change, the warmth fades. The eyes that once sparkled at your arrival now glance past you as if you had become little more than a shadow in the room. We were never told as children that such love is a performance and that performances end. When you mistake the bargain for love itself, you spend your years in quiet exhaustion. You give your time, your loyalty, your devotion, believing this will secure the thing your soul longs for. But what you have secured is not love, only the continuance of an arrangement. And so it happens that many, after years of faithful giving, find themselves bewildered when the warmth fades. Not because they cease to care, but because life has moved, as all things do. Nothing stands still. Even stone wears away. Even plastic warps with time. The man or woman you first knew has changed, just as you have, and the bond built upon fixed terms begins to strain under the weight of impermanence. And there is another truth, more difficult to swallow. When the demands of the bargain are no longer met, the mask will fall. In the absence of what they sought from you, be it comfort, affirmation, or security, some will show you who they truly are. The tenderness you thought was theirs by nature may vanish, revealing not cruelty perhaps, but a hollowness where love was never rooted. You may have felt it, the gaze that no longer lingers, the laughter replaced by a cold and watchful silence. The shift is so quiet, you can almost convince yourself it isn't there. But in that stillness you see it. You were cherished not for your being, but for the service you rendered. And when such a union falters, it does not simply end. It unravels something inside you. It leaves you staring at the ruins, asking whether you were ever truly loved or only ever necessary. Love is not a bargain, nor is it a chain. It is not, I will if you will, nor the silent counting of who has given more. Such things belong to the marketplace, not to the heart. True love is the freedom, the liberty to give without ledger or demand. It is to be fully present with another, not to bind them, but to care for them, simply because the caring itself is joy. It is a gift given without the shadow of a contract, without the fear that it must be returned in equal measure. But here lies the paradox. Such love cannot be given by one who is starving for it. The heart that is desperate to be loved back will always, in some hidden way, attach strings to its giving. It will watch, it will measure, it will wait for the return. And when it does not come, bitterness will grow like ivy through the soul. You cannot love freely until you have ceased to beg for love. And you cannot cease to beg until you have found within yourself a source that does not run dry. That source is not in another's eyes, nor in their approval. It is in the quiet knowing that you are already the child of the very life that breathed you into being. Call it God. Call it the eternal. Call it the nameless mystery. It has loved you into existence before you could earn or deserve a thing. Look at the sun. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. To know this is to stand unshaken whether others love you or turn away. Then, and only then, can you give love as the sun gives light, not to be thanked, not to be owed, but because it cannot help itself. To love is your freedom. No one can take it from you. It is the act of your own being, the overflow of the life that moves through you. You may give it to one, to many, or to the whole world, but it remains yours to give, to be loved. Now that is another matter that is never in your keeping. You cannot command it, purchase it, or reason it into being. Love offered to you is a gift of its own accord, arriving when it will, leaving when it must. It is as the wind that brushes your cheek. You may open your arms to it, but you cannot hold it there forever. If love is given to you, receive it with gratitude. Drink of it while it flows, but never clutch at it, as though it were the last drop in the world. For the moment you try to drag it from another's hands, it ceases to be love and becomes something else, obligation, pity, or bondage. And remember this, you are already loved, not by the fickle tides of human affection, but by the source from which you came. It breathed you into life without condition, without demand. To see this is to know you are never wholly bereft. If you wish for love from others, it must begin here in loving yourself, not in the shallow sense of indulgence, but in the deep sense of accepting your own being without reserve. For a heart at peace with itself no longer begs, it invites, and when two such hearts meet, their love is not a trade, but a meeting of rivers, each full from its own spring. When two people who have learned to dwell at peace within themselves come together, it is not to be filled, for their cups are already full. They do not arrive at each other's door as beggars, bowls outstretched. They come as givers, carrying abundance that spills over the rim. In such a union, there is no bargaining. No one is keeping score, no quiet dread of who owes whom. Love is not given to earn, nor withheld to punish. It moves as naturally as breath, as the tide that rises and falls without being told. Here, the joy is not in taking, but in sharing. There is no hunger in the eyes, only light. One gives not because the other demands it, but because giving is the most natural expression of their being. And so both are fed, not by the draining of one into the other, but by the overflow of each. This is the only love that does not rot into resentment. For where there is no emptiness to be filled, there is no fear of losing. When two full hearts meet, they are free to let each other be, to grow, to change, to wander and return, without the grasping that turns love into a cage. And yet, such a meeting is rare, for most search the world to find another who will complete them, not knowing they were never half a person to begin with. Only when you drink deeply from your own well will you find another who drinks from theirs. And together you will not merely survive, you will overflow. The world you meet each day is not a stranger. It is yourself in another form. You cannot draw from a well what is not in it, nor can you meet in others what you have not yet met. In your own heart, if you carry a hollowness within, you will find yourself surrounded by those who take, not because the world conspires against you, but because nature fills a vacuum. Those who have nothing will seek from you what you have not given to yourself, and you will mistake their hunger for love. If, on the other hand, you move through life with a fullness of being, you will meet those who also carry an abundance. They will not clutch at you or drain you, for they are not living on scraps. Instead, you will find an ease in their company, a recognition as though you had always known them. This is not a mystical trick, nor some hidden cosmic law, but a simple truth of human meeting. The depth to which you have faced yourself becomes the depth to which you can meet another. Most quarrels in love are not between two people, but between the unexamined shadows each has brought along. So, before you go searching for kindness, tenderness, or devotion in the eyes of another, turn inward and meet your own gaze, not to condemn yourself, nor to tally your flaws, but to make the acquaintance of the stranger you have long carried in silence. For it is this hidden self who extends the invitation to others, this unseen presence, who will decide whether the love you meet will be a feast to your soul or the slow unraveling of it. When this truth takes root in you, do not hoard it. Place it gently in the hands of your children, for they are stepping into the same illusion that once ensnared you. Teach them that love is not the trembling romance of songs, nor the solemn bargain sealed before altar and law. It is the willingness to give without the shadow of a demand, to care without the constant fear of loss. If they do not learn this, they will build their homes upon sand and watch them crumble. But if they do, they will stand on rock, and love will not be a cage, but a sky. The question is not, how can I find someone to love me? But the question is, how can I become someone who overflows? For when love is no longer a plea but a gift, when joy is no longer chained to another's approval, you will see that to love and be loved is not something to chase. It is the way you already are. You are not a half searching for the other half. You are whole. And from that wholeness, love flows, finding those who recognize it instantly. Then love ceases to be a hunt, or a bargain, or a desperate keeping. It becomes the quiet, steady light of the sun, needing nothing in return, yet warming the whole sky.
You see, the funny thing about human beings is that we are always looking for something that has never been lost. And we're so clever at it that we can spend an entire lifetime doing it, quite seriously, with great books and big temples and heavy questions like, what am I really supposed to do? We are, in a sense, professional seekers. And like any good profession, it has its tools: meditation, prayer, therapy, business plans, protein shakes. Each one promises to finally get you there. But no one ever really tells you where there is. And perhaps that's the first clue, because what if you're already there and your search is simply disguising the fact that you don't want to be? Now, this is rather awkward, isn't it? Because if that's true, then the whole structure of modern ambition collapses. The idea that you can finally fix yourself, finally earn peace, finally reach some kind of enlightened state, it all begins to look like a dog chasing its own tail, round and round. And if you're fast enough, you might even think you're getting somewhere. But the moment you stop, you see the whole game. You were the one spinning all along. And you see, this is the sort of divine joke the universe likes to play. It gives you the taste for the search, it gives you the books and the teachers and the podcasts, and it lets you run until you collapse in exhaustion. Because only when you are tired enough of looking does the real seeing begin. There's an old Zen story, about a student who went to his master and said, "Master, I am tired of seeking. What shall I do?" And the master said, "Good. Then stop seeking." And the student, frustrated, said, "But if I stop seeking, how will I find it?" And the master smiled. "Ah, you see, the seeker is the problem. That's the heart of it. You see, the universe isn't hiding from you. It has never once gone into hiding. It's been dancing in front of you all this time, in your breath, in the wind that moves through your hair, in the absurdity of trying to explain what you already are. But you were so busy looking out there that you forgot to feel here. And it's not your fault. You were raised in a culture that worships the pursuit. You were told to chase grades, careers, happiness, enlightenment, even authenticity. You were never told that the moment you try to possess these things, they vanish. Happiness isn't something you own, it's something you notice. Peace isn't a goal, it's an atmosphere that reveals itself when the noise stops. And enlightenment, well, that's the greatest punchline of all, because there's no one left to achieve it. You see, every great tradition, whether Eastern or Western, has in its own poetic way been whispering the same thing. Stop running. The thing you're looking for isn't hiding behind the next corner of the mind. It's right here, breathing with you, looking through your eyes, pretending to be the one who's searching. And if you really listen, really listen, you'll feel a strange silence begin to open beneath all your questions. It's not an answer, it's not even a thought. It's more like space, the kind of stillness that has always been there, quietly supporting the noise. Most people are afraid of that silence. They'll do anything to fill it: music, scrolling, arguing, manifesting, improving. Because silence reveals something uncomfortable, that the one who's trying to be fixed was never broken in the first place. So here you are, after years of self-help, still sitting on the same chair, in the same skin, thinking that you should be different. And that thought itself keeps the wheel spinning. Because the moment you think you should be something other than what you are, you've already rejected life as it is. And life, being infinitely polite, will keep offering you new forms of dissatisfaction, just so you can continue your noble quest to fix what was never wrong. It's a rather generous universe in that sense. But it's also mischievous. It lets you build your little altars to progress and discipline, and then, just when you think you've mastered the game, it knocks them over. Not out of cruelty, but to remind you that you can't hold what is already you. The same way you cannot bite your own teeth or see your own eyes directly, you cannot find the self because you are it. The one looking is the one being looked for. The whole search collapses when you see that the seeker and the sought were never separate. And so, at the end of all your efforts, after all your striving, something rather beautiful happens. You give up, not in defeat, but in relief. You realize you've been standing in your own way this entire time. And when that realization dawns, not as an idea, but as a felt sense, the whole machinery of striving falls silent. And in that silence, there it is, the thing you've been running after through lifetimes of desire, discipline, guilt, and effort. Peace, not earned, not achieved, simply revealed. You see, the secret was never hidden, it was only ignored. But don't take my word for it. Try doing nothing, truly nothing, for just a moment. Don't try to meditate, don't try to breathe properly, don't even try to be present. And suddenly, there you are, the one who was never lost. Once you have seen that the seeker was never separate from what was sought, there comes this strange question: what now? Because life, you see, doesn't stop just because you've had a moment of realization. You still get hungry. You still have to pay bills. You still forget where you left your keys. And this is where most people trip again. They think awakening means rising above life. No, no, no. No, it means sinking back into it. It's like realizing the ocean you were swimming in was water all along, and suddenly you relax and float. Now, that doesn't mean you never sink again. Sometimes you still struggle, still grasp, still worry, but you know something you didn't before. You know it's all part of the same ocean. And so life becomes, in a curious way, lighter. Not easier, necessarily, but lighter. You stop dragging yourself around like a problem to be solved. You begin to laugh at the whole cosmic hide-and-seek game that consciousness seems to be playing with itself. You see, existence hides from itself in the form of you. It forgets it's infinite and then spends years trying to remember. And when it finally does, it says, "Ah, that was quite the game." And then, just as easily, it forgets again. That's why the wisest people in history always had a sense of humor. They laughed, not because they didn't care, but because they finally saw the absurdity of caring too much. They realized that seriousness is a form of fear, the refusal to let life flow as it is. When you stop taking yourself so seriously, something beautiful happens. Compassion begins to arise naturally, because you no longer divide the world into you and them. You look at another person, even the difficult ones, and you recognize the same cosmic mischief behind their eyes, the same confusion, the same longing, the same search for something that was never gone. And you can't help but forgive them. Because how can you stay angry at a dream character once you know you're dreaming? Now, this doesn't mean you suddenly become passive or lose your individuality. It means you start to live as life itself, not as an actor trying to control the plot. You begin to see that every movement, every breath, every impulse, even the ones you used to call mistakes, are all part of one continuous motion of being. It's like watching fire. No flame is separate, yet each dances in its own way. And if you watch carefully enough, you begin to see that all of existence is dancing with itself, as itself. The tree is dancing as a tree. The bird is dancing as flight. And you, my friend, are dancing as you. That's the real freedom, not to escape the dance, but to join it fully. Because you see, every attempt to control life was a misunderstanding of what control actually is. Real control is not domination, it's participation. When a musician plays perfectly, he's not controlling the instrument, he's merged with it. In the same way, when you stop trying to fix your life, life begins to play through you like music. You still make choices, yes, but they no longer come from fear. They arise naturally, like waves forming on the sea. And the sea doesn't need to plan its waves. So, how do you live once you've seen that you were never lost? You live like a person who's finally come home. You stop performing for a God you thought was watching you, and instead realize you are that very watching. You begin to enjoy simple things again, not because they bring you closer to enlightenment, but because they are enlightenment in disguise. The sunlight on the floor, the laughter of a child, the way a stranger smiles for no reason at all of it is sacred because all of it is you. Now, some people worry, if I stop striving, won't I become lazy? Won't life fall apart? No, because you never really controlled it in the first place. The planet spins quite beautifully without your supervision. Your heart beats all on its own, and your lungs keep rhythm with the wind. You were never the conductor of this orchestra. You were always part of the symphony. And when you realize that, you stop trying to outsmart the music. You simply listen. There's a subtle intelligence, you see, that moves everything. And when you stop resisting it, it moves through you effortlessly. You begin to trust again, not in belief, not in dogma, but in direct experience. You feel the universe breathing you, feeding you, thinking you, and then one day you laugh because you finally understand the punchline. There was never a you to be saved. There was only life, pretending to be a person who needed saving. And the great irony is that the moment you stop trying to be spiritual, you become naturally spiritual. The moment you stop trying to be perfect, you begin to live perfectly. Not because you followed some map to heaven, but because you realized you were standing in heaven all along. So when the mind starts whispering again, maybe I've lost it, maybe I need to get back, just smile. You can't lose what you are. The sky doesn't need to remember it's blue. All that really changes is the seeing, the recognition that life was never a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. You are not here to reach something, you are here to express something. And that expression is happening right now, as this breath, as this moment, as this incredible play of form and silence. And when the curtain finally falls, as it does for everyone, you won't be afraid, because you'll know it was only a performance, and you were both the actor and the audience, clapping for yourself all along. So when you've tried everything, every book, every technique, every dream of becoming something greater, nothing seems to work, maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's grace, because the end of seeking is the beginning of seeing. And when you finally stop trying to find the secret, it smiles at you quietly and says, the secret was never hidden. Success is one of those words that seems to shimmer in the distance, like a mirage in the desert. From the earliest days of childhood, we are taught to chase it. Teachers speak of it when they grade your papers. Parents speak of it when they worry about your future. Society speaks of it in every story it tells about wealth, power, talent, or recognition. It is dangled before us like a prize to be won, and because it shines so brightly, we assume there must be some clear path that leads to it. Surely, if others have walked there, then we too can follow, provided we know the secret steps. And so we look for patterns. We gather the biographies of those we admire and study them carefully, as though they were maps to buried treasure. We count the hours they slept, the foods they ate, the routines they followed. We ask what they read, whom they knew, how they spoke, how they worked. Entire industries spring up to satisfy this curiosity, offering formulas, habits, techniques, the so-called laws of success. We devour them hungrily because we long for certainty, the assurance that if we follow the recipe exactly, we too will rise to the top. But when you pause to look more carefully, the picture begins to dissolve. For every story of someone who became successful by waking up before dawn and practicing endless discipline, there is another of someone who slept late, ignored all rules, and stumbled into fortune. For every tale of genius and brilliance, there is another of persistence without brilliance, stubbornness without elegance, sheer refusal to give up. Some are celebrated for their caution, others for their recklessness. One is praised for humility, another for arrogance. The more examples you collect, the less consistent the pattern becomes. This contradiction should give us pause. If success were truly the result of a formula, then those who mastered the formula would always succeed, and those who did not would always fail. But life does not seem to follow such neat arrangements. Instead, it produces a dazzling variety of outcomes, each unique, each irreducible to a single cause. The mind resists this because it craves simplicity. We want an equation: success equals intelligence plus effort plus opportunity. Yet the lived reality is far messier. Sometimes intelligence hinders as much as it helps, effort is misdirected, and opportunity is squandered. Sometimes foolishness, laziness, and accident create results no one could have planned. Perhaps the problem lies in how we imagine success itself. We treat it as though it were a static point on the horizon, a destination anyone can reach if they walk in the right direction. But what if success is not a fixed point at all? What if it is more like a meeting place, a crossing of circumstances and character, an alignment that cannot be predicted ahead of time? Consider the surfer waiting in the water. They may have practiced for years, built strong muscles, sharpened their instincts, but without the right wave, all their preparation goes unused. Another, less skilled, may find themselves carried along simply because the wave arrived at the right moment and they were ready to ride it. Who, then, is the successful one, the strongest paddler, or the one who caught the wave? The truth is that success is never just the person or the circumstances. It is always the marriage of the two. This is why success stories, when told honestly, often sound accidental. People admit that they did not know where events would lead. They describe strokes of luck, coincidences, meetings they could never have planned. Even when they emphasize their hard work, they usually confess that the decisive break came unexpectedly, a door opening at just the right time. And if you look closely at the lives of those who failed, you may find equally hardworking, equally intelligent, equally dedicated individuals who simply never met the right conditions. To call one a failure and the other a success may flatter our love of judgment, but it ignores the larger pattern at work. This is not to say that our efforts mean nothing. A surfer who has never practiced will not stay on the wave for long, no matter how perfectly it arrives. But practice alone is not enough. One needs readiness and opportunity together. And readiness is not only skill, but also the ability to see and respond when the wave does arrive. Many people miss their moments, not because they lack ability, but because they are too rigid, too fearful, too distracted to notice. Others seize them, not because they are more deserving, but because they are awake to the possibilities. So perhaps the common thread among successful people is not discipline or intelligence or even luck in the ordinary sense. Perhaps it is something subtler, a way of being in relationship with life. Some call it intuition, others call it timing, others call it flow. It is the capacity to respond to what is happening rather than insisting that it match your preconceived plan. It is the willingness to ride the wave that is there, not the one you imagined. This is why one person succeeds by taking risks and another succeeds by avoiding them. Each acted in harmony with the particular situation they faced. To copy either one blindly would be foolish, because your situation will never be identical to theirs. What you need is not their specific action, but their attunement, their responsiveness to the moment. The irony is that this cannot be captured in a rule book. It cannot be reduced to always be bold or always be cautious. It is more like learning to dance. You do not memorize every step in advance. You listen, you feel the rhythm, you adjust as the music unfolds. And here we encounter the paradox that frustrates so many seekers. The only thing successful people truly have in common is that they are not following a formula at all. They are improvising, attuned to the moment, moving with life as it is, not as they wish it to be. This looks different in each case, and so it resists our desire for general rules. But if you sense the underlying pattern, you can recognize it everywhere. Think of the farmer tending his crops. He cannot command the rain to fall or the sun to shine, but he can learn when to plant, when to water, when to harvest. His success lies not in controlling nature, but in cooperating with it. The same is true of the musician, who does not force the instrument but lets it sing, who knows that silence is as essential as sound, or the painter who does not impose rigidly on the canvas, but allows the colors to speak, to surprise. Each of these is a metaphor for life itself. We are not its masters, but its participants, and our flourishing depends on how gracefully we join the dance. What makes this so difficult is our craving for control. We do not like to admit that so much depends on forces beyond us. It makes us feel small, vulnerable, at the mercy of chance. And yet, when we look back on our lives, how many of the decisive moments were truly ours to command? Did we choose the family we were born into, the time and place, the teachers, the friends, the accidents, the encounters? Did we design the economy, the culture, the weather? All of these shaped our paths, and none were within our grasp. To call ourselves entirely self-made is to deny the obvious. And yet, to call ourselves powerless is also untrue, because at each juncture we still had to respond, to say yes or no, to act or to refrain. So the picture is more subtle. Success is not a formula, but neither is it pure accident. It is a dance between what the world offers and how we move with it. Those we call successful are simply those whose dance happened to fit the music at that moment. Some may dance wildly, others gracefully, but what matters is not the style, it is the alignment. This realization can be liberating because it frees us from the tyranny of imitation. If there is no universal formula, then there is no need to measure ourselves against the supposed rules of others. We need not rise at dawn if we are not morning people. We need not read 100 books a year if that is not our temperament. We need not copy the eccentricities of the genius or the routines of the millionaire. Instead, we can attend to our own moment, our own wave, our own dance. We can learn to be present, to listen, to trust the unfolding of life. And yet, this is also the hardest lesson to accept because it denies us the security we crave. We want guarantees, and life offers none. We want permanence, and life is change. The mountain of success we dream of climbing keeps shifting its shape. And so, perhaps the first step toward genuine freedom is to let go of the need for certainty, and instead to find peace in the improvisation itself. If the first realization is that success does not follow a fixed formula, the second is that the only common thread lies deeper than traits or habits. For when you look closely at those we call successful, you see not sameness but difference. Each has moved in a way unique to themselves, and yet there is something subtle that connects them. It is not what they do, but how they are. It is not the content of their lives, but the quality of their relationship to life itself. You might notice this in the way they speak about their journeys. They often describe a kind of responsiveness, a willingness to take the step that appeared, even when it was unexpected. They do not seem as rigidly attached to a plan as those who remain stuck. They may have goals, yes, but they hold them lightly, ready to pivot when the world reveals a new opening. There is a quality of attention, of being present to the unfolding moment, that allows them to move with the current rather than against it. Consider how rivers flow. They wind, they twist, they change direction when they meet a rock, and yet they always find their way to the sea. If a river tried to move in a perfectly straight line, it would only collide with obstacles and stagnate. In the same way, those who are awake to life's movement do not cling to one rigid path. They bend, they adjust, and yet their movement is steady, always flowing toward a larger wholeness. Perhaps this is why, when we encounter them, we sense a vitality, an aliveness that seems more important than any specific achievement. We are often told that success requires control. Control over your time, your habits, your body, your thoughts. And there is truth in discipline, but control can become a prison. Too much control and you become brittle, unable to adapt. Too little and you collapse into chaos. The art lies in something subtler, cooperation. You do not command life, you converse with it. You do not dominate the dance, you listen to the rhythm. And this listening is the thread that unites those who flourish, whether they are artists, entrepreneurs, leaders, or healers. Think of music. A skilled musician does not simply force the notes. They listen, they allow the melody to move through them, they respond to what the music itself seems to want. If they try to control it too tightly, the music dies. If they abandon all structure, it dissolves into noise. The secret is that delicate balance between discipline and surrender. And in this way, success in life is not different from success in art. It is not the product of willpower alone, nor of passivity, but of a dialogue between self and world. This is why success stories so often sound like improvisations. One person stumbles into a chance meeting that changes everything. Another seizes an idea at the right time, not because they planned it decades in advance, but because they were paying attention when the moment appeared. Still another endures failure after failure, only to find that each so-called failure was teaching them the very thing they needed for the eventual breakthrough. To an outsider, it looks like luck. To the one living it, it feels like a kind of guidance, not from outside, but from life itself. It is here that philosophy meets practicality. For what we call Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, is not about doing nothing. It is about doing in harmony with the way of things. Water flows around rocks not because it is lazy, but because it is wise. It finds the path of least resistance, and in doing so, it wears down even the hardest stone. The same principle applies to human life. Those who align with the current of events, who act in accordance with what is already moving, accomplish more with less strain. Those who fight against it exhaust themselves and often achieve little. But how do you recognize the current? How do you know when to act and when to wait? Here lies the subtlety. It cannot be taught as a rigid method, but it can be sensed when the mind is quiet. Most of us are so filled with chatter, with the voice that insists we must plan and calculate and worry, that we miss the simple cues of life. But when you learn to listen, you begin to notice. The door opens, the conversation flows, the body feels light rather than heavy. Opportunities reveal themselves not as loud announcements, but as quiet invitations. To respond to them requires trust. Trust that life is not your enemy, that the unfolding of events has its own rhythm in which you belong. This trust is the one quality that seems to unite those who flourish. Not trust in a guarantee of success, not faith that everything will go your way, but trust in the process itself. They do not cling desperately to outcomes, because they know outcomes are never certain. They do not measure every step against a rigid ideal, because they know ideals are only stories. Instead, they enter fully into the play of life, knowing that even setbacks have their place. Even losses are part of the rhythm. Think of a child playing a game. The child does not demand that the game always go their way. They delight in the surprises, the risks, even the falls. They know that the play is the point, not the outcome. Somewhere along the way, adults forget this. We become serious, anxious, convinced that every step must be managed and controlled. But the childlike quality of play is what allows true responsiveness. And so those who succeed often seem to retain some trace of that playfulness, that openness to surprise. There is another way to see this. Imagine life as a great theater, with each of us an actor upon the stage. Some of us spend all our time worrying about the script, trying to memorize lines, fearing that we will forget. Others allow themselves to improvise, to trust that the play itself will carry them, that the other actors, the stage, the story, will all contribute. The play is never entirely in your hands, but you are never entirely powerless either. Your role is to play your part fully, to give yourself to the performance without clinging to how it must end. And what is success in this theater? It is not necessarily applause, nor fame, nor wealth. It is the quality of the performance itself, the aliveness with which it is given. Some roles are grand, others small, but all are part of the same play. And those who succeed are those who inhabit their role fully, who do not wish to be someone else, who give themselves to the moment with sincerity and joy. This is why, when you strip away the outer details, the only thing successful people have in common is this aliveness, this presence. They are not sleepwalking through their days, clinging to old patterns, resisting what island. They are awake, they are here. And because they are here, They can meet life as it comes, rather than as they wish it were. The irony is that when you understand this, the very chase for success begins to lose its grip. You see that success is not a destination to be reached, but a quality of being alive to each moment. You see that the applause of the crowd or the accumulation of wealth are only side effects, not the essence. And you may begin to realize that the success you sought was always available in the simple act of being present, of playing your part, of flowing with the current of life.